intro.
An ASMR intro.
Oh God. Well, first it's the sun. Now it's just whispering things into the ears of our listeners.
I can give you a potato chip chomp right into the mic.
Oh God.
Oh, I liked that one.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Anyway, we are a professional and serious podcast. That is what we are. Anyway.
Speak for yourself, but okay.
Okay, I gotta do it. Hold on. Don't make me laugh. Hello and welcome to Fall Through, your source for deep conversations about software, technology, and computing. I'm your host, Kris Brando, also known as Scriptable. And on today's episode, we are talking about outages. The recent Azure outage, the recent AWS outage. There was a GCP outage a few months back that also wound up taking down Cloudflare. Lots of fun stuff about outages and, whatever else we decide we're going to talk about today. And wherever else this conversation takes us. As always, for our supporters, we have extended content. If you're not a supporter today, you should become one by going to fallthrough.fm/subscribe. And if you're not following us on social media, you should go do that and reply to some of our posts. We like talking to you guys. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, that subscribe button, and that notification bell. It really helps us out. And with that, let's get into this episode.
Also, please send some snail mail.
Send some snail mail. We want letters.
I want an unboxing video where we just open all the letters on YouTube.
Ooh, that could be fun.
All three of them.
All three. Here is letter one. Let's read it out loud. Anyway. All right. So, as I said, we're going to be talking about outages today. And I have a little panel. We have my usual partner in crime here, Matt. How are you doing today, Matt?
Great. Long day today. So I think our first time recording this late, which is great.
In a very long time. I think early episodes in like January or February, you did some late night ones, but yeah, we've been doing a lot of mornings lately and a couple afternoons, but never at night. So this is a nice little way to end your day. And speaking of people we haven't seen in a while, we also have Ian joining us. How you been, Ian?
Oh, not on the podcast. But no, I've been good. Nice cozy rainy day. It's a good night for a podcast.
Yeah. It was rainy. I guess it's kind of, at least in Manhattan, it stopped raining. At least it looks like it stopped raining. I don't know if it did. But yeah, nice little rainy day. A nice little rainy day podcast about the sadness of outages. All right. So I think we should start with the AWS outage. Who wants to do a summary of what happened? Matt, you wanna summarize?
The TLDR summary that I've seen, and I've read the entire outage summary, the official AWS 1 message 101925, putting that on the record. And I've read the blog post that spawned from this of people summarizing this. And my whole summary here is the DNS records for the DynamoDB service endpoint, a regional service endpoint of the region US East 1, were deleted, so DNS cannot resolve. And since DNS cannot resolve for DynamoDB, and DynamoDB is such a critical service for AWS, that cascaded to different AWS services like Amazon EC2 and the network load balancer and so on and so forth. That's about as the most concise summary I think we should stay at for that. And then we can dive into all this.
Yeah. No, I think I read a good chunk, like the first part of this outage summary that was talking about the DynamoDB, the DNS outage. And it's one of those classic distributed systems problems that I was like, oh, even Amazon engineers struggle with this stuff because to dig into it a little bit, what happened is, so the way that DNS works for DynamoDB is you have the two-phase process, which is common for a lot of things. I think Terraform also has this, all of our tools have this plan and execute as separate phases. So you have this thing that's making DNS plans. It's kind of monitoring all of the infrastructure, all of the load balancers that Dynamo uses. And then it's saying, okay, here's how all of the DNS records should be laid out. And you have this because Dynamo is very elastic as a service. So if something goes out, you have a new DNS record that comes in to point you at something that's healthy, right? Something goes down, you get repointed somewhere else, so you can continue using the service, and also so that you can get pointed to the geographically closest location to you and other stuff like that. So you have a planner that's putting out all of these plans, and then you have a distributed set of executors that are picking up those plans and attempting to enact them. And what happened is that there's a single check at the start of this process where the planner says, or the executor says, am I trying to execute like a newer version of the plan than what is currently on the infrastructure? And if that is no, if it's an older version, then it doesn't do anything. But if it's a newer version, it goes through and starts executing. And what happened is that one executor started executing a plan, but it ran into very high latency and was delayed in its processing of that plan. And a few more iterations of the planner went through, and it made many, many more plans to change the infrastructure. And another executor picked up a newer plan and went through, and it didn't experience that latency. So it just went through and it applied the new plan to all of the infrastructure while the first executor was still running. And then, since there was a much newer plan that was on the infrastructure, there's a third service that basically goes through and does garbage collection, that goes through and deletes all of the old plans off of the infrastructure. So that starts running, but as that's trying to run, the first executor stops having latency problems and then just goes through and puts the old plan on all of the infrastructure because it doesn't check to see that, hey, there's something newer on there. So it puts the old plan on the infrastructure for US East 1, and then the garbage collector says, oh, hey, this is old, so then it just deletes everything. And that is what made the outage occur, basically deleted all of the DNS records. And there was something else going on with this the system that made it so that they couldn't actually put those records back using the systems that were in place, so they had to do it manually. And that is what caused the DynamoDB outage. And since there's a whole bunch of other stuff like EC2 that's built on top of it, that stuff also went down. So you couldn't restart EC2 instances or things like that.
Which was arguably the much bigger outage, the EC2 part.
Yes.
Yeah, I found the writing. Well, I'm going to just say this at the top. The writing of the summary is poor. Like the actual writing of the summary, like grammar wise, description wise, heck, even paragraph break wise, sucks. The writing here in the summary leaves a lot to be desired. It does tell the story, but who wants to read an entire paragraph like this that's just a wall of text in your web browser? Also, there is no big text width, so you get a large text across your entire screen.
Yeah.
The writing, do better, Amazon, please.
Yeah, when I read this, I literally made the window skinny in the middle of my monitor so I could actually read it.
Yeah, I set a text width on the div so that the width is actually readable. And I broke some paragraphs up so I can actually follow them. But I think they do this on purpose because they don't want people understanding why things happened or went down. They want to bore you and make your eyes glaze over. And it's interesting because, like you were saying, Kris, you have the planner who's responsible for creating the DNS plan and doing a sort of time of check, time of use sort of bug, I guess you can call it, where they check that they check the endpoints, they check that the plan is newer, blah, 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 one time. And then later on, the enactor who's going to apply the plan, it's assumed that the enactor is going to run quick enough that can apply the plan where no newer plan existed. You know what I mean? And it's the latency there that occurred allowed this old plan to not apply for such a long time that by the time it could apply, newer plans were already applied and records were deleted. And now since the garbage collector cleaned up all of those plans, the previous plans, you couldn't even easily recover, which is a pretty bad failure mode for this system, especially when I'm not saying that the engineering behind this is bad or good or whatever. It is a pretty bad failure mode. And I don't know how they didn't see this earlier, given the design of the system at this point. Like what they just not ever have latency on these calls, and they just happen to have it today? Like, I'm just curious of why this wasn't seen earlier.
Yeah,
I know none of us know, but yeah.
I mean, it's like it's one of those like distributed systems trade-offs that you have to do, where it's just like, well, you could avoid this if you just had a strongly consistent or like serializable or linearizable system for making these changes. But then you have to do coordination at some level, like across availability zones, in order for this to really work. And that has it's slow because you have to do all this communication between things. And it's just more complicated to design and get right. So there's other bugs that you come up with. So it's easier to have like a shared nothing model of the world, but
which
you
is what
do
they
run
did
into
here.
Yeah, which is what you run into here, where there's not really, with this model, there's no way to really fix this problem, at least in the smallest sense, because you have a time of check, time of use problem no matter what, right? You always have to check and then do something, and unless you like build the DNS server in such a way that it understands if the state that, like, unless you have like atomic operations on the DNS server where it can be like, okay, here's the plan I think I'm changing, right? And here's the change I want you to do. And it can say like, oh no, that one's too old, or something else changed in the meantime. Unless you have that built into the system, then you can't fix this problem. Totally. And that would probably complicate the design of the DNS servers themselves and the load balancers. Yeah.
Something I want to know is how, like they say it ran into latency. How much latency are we talking, right? Like, could this have just been solved with a reasonable timeout?
Well, that's the thing, right? Because we'll talk about the retry that killed EC2 later, right? Because that's why EC2 went down, because they were aggressively retrying and kind of stampeding themselves a little bit. But yeah, I agree with you. Like, my naive sort of take here is, by the time this plan was meant to be applied, much time has passed since then. The plan should have timed out and said, oh, I'm not going to apply this one. It's been too long. And therefore, your failure domain turns into, I'm not going to delete all these records that are possibly useful, to, I'm not going to create these records. So now, you've sliced up your failure domain a little bit. Now the affected parties are those who were relying on the new records, not that those were relying on the existing records. And I think, wouldn't that have been a better choice, I guess? But again, I know nothing about their internal systems here. I'm speculating in hindsight.
At the end of the day, we know that there's a process that goes through and deletes old records. I don't know if that's time-based or account-based thing, but if it's time-based, like if your timeout is longer than I'm going to go delete it, you're probably going to run into some issues.
I think it's just number of plans based, right? So once you've applied a certain number of plans, it goes through and it just cleans up the stuff from previous plans.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's like, how many plans have been generated since the plan that currently exists here is here? I also think like having timeouts could be problematic, because then you get into a state where like half the plan has been applied, and then what do you do? Like, okay, then you can roll back, but then what if the rollback times out? But then you just also have to put no timeout on the rollback. So it's like, it's a gnarly distributed system problem at the end of the day. And I think at some level
that's true.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about it mainly in the sense of like, each plan has the data from previous plans. But I guess that's not true here. This is just DNS updates, not necessarily like state of the worlds. Does that make sense? That that maybe I was thinking about it more in that state of the world model, where like plan A has the entire state of the world at this time, and then plan B, which is later than plan A, has its state. So you could reasonably ignore plan A as long as plan B applies at some point, because it'll contain the state too.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm incorrectly assuming that.
The planner definitely has the state of everything, but like the other issue here as well is that like, I'm assuming that not like every plan doesn't change everything. So there are some parts of old plans that would stay in place because they haven't been overridden by a new plan, right? Like if the first one's like, okay, change these DNS records, and then other ones change some of the old same DNS records and make some new ones. Like the first set of DNS records you made are still valid and presumably should still be there. And I don't think I would imagine that if it's not going to change something, the enactor isn't going to go through and just like update a record to be like, oh, this is the new plan, right? So it's not going to do a whole bunch of writes because that's also intensive, and like, for what reason would you want to do that? So I imagine that's why it's like kind of complicated to figure out what's new and what's old and what's, you know, been applied or not been applied. It just feels like this is also just like extremely complex for I don't know what reason, probably just like lava layers over the years of like designing a complicated distributed system to be at a large scale, and just not probably at like no point did like someone sit down and go through all of the different types of scenarios that could happen. Although, to be fair, this type of thing happening is a fairly basic distributed systems problem. So it is, I mean, there might have been an engineering trade-off. Like someone probably brought this up and then they said, well, we've never had latency issues like that before, so we're just going to assume we're not going to have them. And we're not going to fix this problem because this problem is going to take a lot more engineering effort to fix. And, you know, we've all worked in companies where it's like, yeah, sometimes there's a right way to do things and people are like, nope, that's too expensive to do, so we're not going to do that, and we're going to cross our fingers and hope that it doesn't cause a problem.
I think that's the right choice sometimes, just saying.
No, it definitely is the right choice
Totally,
a lot of the time. But then you run into situations like this where it's just like you kind of crash the internet for a few hours as a result.
That's the thing, right? Is I think that is the correct decision, right? If you don't see a latency problem over the past n number of time period, right? Like you can rightfully say we're gonna mitigate that risk by accepting that risk, right? And say that's just part of our stance here. I think that's a fine engineering decision and trade-off. Problem is, Amazon is a centralized place for so many people's workloads. So when it does go down, it just takes so many things with it. Yeah. You know, it's like the analogy that I've been thinking about here is like kind of like our food supply or our refrigerators. Mm-hmm. We have food in our refrigerators to cook meals for our localized family. And like, we don't always order out food every single day and rely on some restaurant to provide us food, so that when like we're all calling into the same restaurant and the restaurant goes down, all of our families can eat. You know, it's like we have this sort of localized fault domain. And I see that here where we did make the choice for every one of us to go to the same restaurant and eat their food, you know, and then when the restaurant's out of business or it goes down, none of us can eat. Same thing here in AWS. Like this is the centralized nature that we've accounted for, and it hurts when these things go down.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing too, because I saw some people bringing up this is why you should be multi-region, but it's like if Amazon is having trouble, I don't understand. Amazon on a different scale than most people, but they're struggling with some basic distributed systems problems. Like a lot of engineers are not going to be able to handle designing their app to work at a multi-region level with reasonable levels of latency at the end of the day.
Not to mention cost. It is expensive.
Yeah. You have to manage.
I agree.
Even just egress costs, because you pay for inter-region. Yeah,
you do.
So it's like there's like if you design your app wrong and there's a lot of data flowing between regions, like that's going to increase your bill a lot. Figuring out how much you need to run and then thinking through all of the different distributed systems issues that you're going to have to deal with. It's really tough to design a system at that scale. And then also like it's not usually practical for you to have like linearizability or serializability for your app at a multi-region scale, because like now for everything you do, you have to communicate across at least 3 regions, which is just going to give you lots of latency in everything.
You just put an atomic clock in all regions and you're done. Okay, he solved the problem. Everyone's happy. I mean, you're totally correct though. Yeah. I saw those posts on LinkedIn and other socials of like multi-region, man, hybrid cloud, da da da. It's like
hybrid cloud, my God.
Yeah. I was like, okay, I get the sentiment, but we're not really thinking through this. First of all, why did you skip completely over failover architecture of like if you were affected, if you are a single region infrastructure, right? If that's where your infrastructure is, and you have a very good failover architecture and design and process, and you can fail over, say, minutes, right? And this is assuming that it's a stellar process where your data is like always replicated to another region and blah, blah, blah. Like, I mean, the region can go dark and you can fail over because you have the data already in another region. Not like, oh, let me reach the region that's currently down to pull the data off. Too late, man. Like, it was too late. Not that sort of thing. But if you have an architecture that has a nice single region but a good failover policy, you could have been back up in minutes or hours, right? Like,
right.
So why not? And that's a simpler, and I'm gonna use air quotes there, a simpler architecture because it doesn't require an application logic change because you're basically moving your whole application to this new region. You're not dealing with multi-region things in the app layer. You can still have that sort of serializability from a single region architecture, but nobody talks about that. Everyone's just jump straight to the multi-region hybrid cloud thing. And it's like, what?
I think there are a lot of issues with like even good failovers, right? Like you need to be like doing table exercises regularly. And like, it's a large investment as well. Like maybe a smaller ongoing investment, but like it is still a large investment.
Totally. It's an investment either. I mean, so is insurance, right? But we pay for it all the time. Health insurance, car insurance, life insurance, like we pay for insurance too. It's a large investment, but that's what you're doing, right? You're paying for the mitigation of this risk because the people that didn't pay for this in terms of architectural decisions, they just have to sit there and take the outage, right? Like that is a valid stance too, because you can pay for like actual insurance for your thing and blah, blah, blah. You can do that. That's a valid stance, but you do have to weigh these costs and you do have to come to the conclusion and write down why you did this versus that. And I'm not sitting here saying single region plus failover is the silver bullet, but it often just doesn't enter the conversation for some reason. And it could be a very valid architecture for a lot of businesses out there.
I agree with that.
Like to see that being discussed more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think all of these, a lot of this comes down to just like more forethought and more planning, which I think is where we as an industry struggle a lot. Like we all run to databases like Postgres and MySQL and even like Cockroach. We run to these databases that are like give us some level of guarantee around like serializability or linearizability to make it so that we can not have to think about our data models as much. Like when you have the database enforcing consistency in a way, and like really not just consistency, but like basically being like, oh, you can have things that conflict and there's an easy way to back out of that conflict instead of having to like sit down and design your data so that your data doesn't ever have conflicts. Like it has allowed us to be very lazy in our data modeling and the way that we think about our data. And our databases do a lot of work effectively bending over backwards and really stretching the model to the limit in order to allow us to actually operate at some decent speed, right? Like our databases run assuming that there will not be any conflicts, which is why if you have workloads that have a lot of conflicts in them, your database performance is just going to go down the toilet because it's just awful because it's having to actually operate in a mode where like it really does have to run through and do conflict resolution. Or you just have transactions that take way too long to commit or a whole bunch of other like problems you will run into. And if you spent more time thinking about your data model and just designed your data to not conflict, that would solve a bunch of problems. But that would also enable you to actually do multi-region a whole lot easier. Because like the hard part of doing multi-region is the data and how do you make it so things are consistent at the end of the day.
Agreed. This forethought is lacking. And it's funny because we're so quick to call ourselves engineers in this industry, and what engineering are we really doing sometimes? This is part of it. This forethought discussion is part of what we're supposed to be doing here. And it just pains me when I see companies who like I thought should have known better. And I'm not saying Amazon here. I'm saying the other companies that have tied themselves so heavily to a single region Amazon outage being a problem when we've seen time and time again the effects of these outage. Like, I hope this is a wake up call and that we start to have these discussions more. I'm not going to sit here and blame people, but next time you should think next time these conversations come up, you should talk about this stuff and see what you can reasonably do in your business to mitigate some of this better.
Yeah.
Should we talk about, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, should we talk about the EC2 side of this a little bit?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, so DynamoDB is down, right? Can't resolve the endpoint for it for DNS. EC2 relies on DynamoDB. They have what's called a droplet workflow manager, which is the first time I didn't know they had. It was called droplets. Reminds me of DigitalOcean.
Yeah.
Where this EC2 service is supposed to take a lease, so it can manage droplets, and it uses Dynamo to take that lease. And when Dynamo's down, existing leases are fine until it's time for that to be, renewed, essentially. So these leases were unable to be renewed, and if the droplet manager cannot manage the droplets, there's an issue with creating EC2 instances now, because how does it know to like provision instances on the hardware and so on and so forth? So from my understanding, existing EC2 instances were relatively okay. It's new EC2 instances that were launched during this time were a problem, which causes issues for people. That's my understanding. I'd have to probably reread again to make sure I'm not missing something there. But then when Dynamo was brought back up and it was serviceable again, all of those EC2 services that are trying to renew and create their leases started doing the thundering herd problem to Dynamo, which increased latency again and made queues larger and so on and so forth. And now you've come back, you've just kind of fixed your Dynamo problem, and you're kind of causing another Dynamo problem by hammering it with EC2 requests. That's kind of the EC2 side of this. And the network load balancer is kind of in there too. And I won't go so much into detail there because it's basically the same thing. Relies on all this.
Yeah. I think it's like taking up leases is like it's a good idea, but it's like, this is why it's probably good to have like a dedicated lease manager instead of relying on another part of infrastructure. Because when that part of infrastructure goes down, you're just going to wind up with like this type of problem. But I also think this is like a thing that we as an industry like rely too heavily on like timeouts and retries. And I think that's also from like a distributed systems perspective, not a great design. Because I think I brought this up when we did one of our HTTP episodes, but it's like, you could just not. A mini version of this that I experience often is like on DoorDash, you can select to have a PIN, and they always use the last 4 digits of your phone number as a PIN, which I think is silly. You should just randomly generate a PIN.
So so this is week 1.
Right.
So that's Monday and Tuesday or whatever, or Sunday and Monday. The very next week, this week, Microsoft has its turn. It says me too, and it wants an outage.
Yeah.
That one I was less.
I didn't hear about this one.
Yeah, because nobody uses Azure. Like, come on, man. Of course. I'm just kidding. Actually, you know what? Who do I care? I don't care. Who's gonna come after me for it? They don't use Azure. This one I think was a shorter outage, right? What is this?
Yeah.
1500 to 2300. Yeah. Okay. So about 9-ish hours, right? Or something like that.
That's a lot.
But I think this is total beginning to total end. They put in like a partial fix 2-3 hours after the outage. So I guess, yeah, it looks like about 3 hours of total outage before they like mitigated and got it back on. But then 9 hours when it's like completely confirmed, done. Because nobody wants to close an outage until it's like absolutely overly confirmed that it's back to correct.
Yeah.
So that's a little longer. This one kind of in a similar manner. They're like a configuration, I guess, is misconfiguration a word? I don't know. A inadvertent configuration change. That's what the words they use on their history here. With Azure Front Door, triggered a widespread outage. To be completely honest with you, I don't know what Azure Front Door is. Oh, I don't actually know what that
I
is.
feel like it's like their load balancer, probably.
It's like API gateway or something.
Or
Is
something
it?
like that? Yeah.
I thought, because I thought their load balancer was called Azure Load Balancer. Again, do people use Azure?
It's their CDN.
Oh,
Okay.
that makes sense.
Okay,
Kind of.
so their CDN experienced an inadvertent configuration change, which put the system in a misconfigured way, and now you have latency, timeouts, blah 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 for downstream services. And I guess this makes a little bit more sense to me than the DynamoDB one, because okay, a CDN, other services do rely on it to do things, but also isn't a CDN meant to be like best effort
Like a
rather than
pass-through,
source
right?
of, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a pass through. So if the CDN's broken, it can't pass anything through.
That's true. Unless your application logic, your client is aware of like try CDN and try backend directly, which
Yeah,
would
but
be
no,
a different
no
architecture.
one would
No
do
one
that.
does
Like,
that.
Right. Yeah.
That would defeat the point of having the CDN.
Yeah, that's true.
'Cause,
I
like,
guess my thing is the backend services had a problem here. Like I can understand the flow coming into Azure from clients, but like what did the backend services have to do with the CDN here is my question. And they didn't, I mean, I should tell the listeners and viewers, Azure has not yet released a outage summary about this. They only have the preliminary post-incident review. So at the time of this recording, that's all we have access to. And they tell us like the configuration change went out, this made nodes drop out of the global traffic pool, and downstream services were affected. But we don't know how yet. We don't know anything besides this yet. So we're kind of speculating here.
Yeah, because I mean, like modern day CDNs too are not just, they're both like your CDN as we traditionally know, the thing that just serves like static assets and things like that. But it's also like usually like your web application firewall. It's like access control. It's like a whole bunch of other stuff is now built into basically every modern CDN. So you're incentivized to not bypass it because that's the thing protecting you from things like DDoS attacks. Like that's what Cloudflare can do. Basically every big CDN is analyzing enough traffic that they can just prevent DDoS attacks from happening while still allowing the good traffic through.
Got you. Yeah, they have their WAF and their DDoS protection here. I see it now. Okay.
Yeah.
I've never used this specific service from, again, I don't use much of Azure at all. Neither do you, listener and viewer. Come on, don't lie to me.
I mean, behind AWS, they
kidding.
are the second biggest cloud provider. So
no, I know. I'm really.
Are
just
they bigger
poking
than
fun.
yes.
GCP?
Yeah, they are. Because they gave Azure
for enterprises
with Teams and
because they what?
Because they give you a crap ton of Azure credits with your 365 subscription.
Yeah, but
which is smart. I would do the same thing if I was.
It's also for like enterprises, right? Going to GCP or Azure or GCP or AWS, either one is a procurement process. You got to go through. You got to do vendor evaluations. You got to do all this crap. It's really annoying. Microsoft is already one of your vendors, so that's just adding a line item to your bill with them. So it's like setting up Azure is like, oh, I don't have to do any of the approvals. As long as the budget line can hold whatever money I need, then that's all I have to do. So that is why Azure is so big, is because so many enterprises were already had Word or Active Directory subscriptions. So adding cloud services was very simple for them to do. Whereas
smart.
Yeah. And whereas doing like GCP or AWS is like a much more complicated thing. Like maybe they already had something in AWS, but like they probably didn't have anything with Google. And that's why Google is struggling so hard.
Totally. And I gotta say, I'm only poking fun at the people not using Azure. I'm really kidding, because when I did use Azure, I did actually have a decent-ish experience. I was their concept of resource groups, the way they model like certain things in like the instance and NICs and stuff. I kind of liked it. It felt more SRE opsy to me, and I was fine with it. I know everyone has their own opinions on it, but I generally like Azure. Is fine for me. It worked, but I don't use it anymore, right? Because I just don't have to.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
But I didn't hear beds breaking because of it. So
well,
there's that.
That's because it's mostly enterprises that are using Azure, not startups. So
true.
There's
but
probably
also, I didn't hear really like a lot of enterprise impact though. I didn't go looking for it either, right? I mean, this was when?
Yesterday.
Yeah. this was yesterday, I didn't hear a lot of like, oh, our critical business thing is down. Like, so maybe the businesses that are using Azure are using it in that more localized fault domain for a specific part of their like application stack, right? Their mission critical stuff is maybe doing something else. I don't know. I really don't know. But
Or it's just like the part of there could have been lots of things that broke, but like the parts of the business that are using Azure might not they might not be outwardly facing, right? Like one of my friends works at a Fortune 50 company on like a digital team, and like he uses Azure all of the time. But he like the things he's building are for like internal customers. So it's like if his product goes down, that's not going to be an outwardly affecting thing.
Correct.
But it could, cause some problems for people that need to, because it's like a data analyzing application. So they won't be able to analyze the data they need. So maybe they can't create orders or things like that.
And importantly, I don't see a mention of their compute service being down, whereas Amazon's compute service was affected. Here, like I see SQL database, Azure Virtual Desktop, container registry, but I don't see the core compute service. Because if that was down, now you have, because that did go down with Azure last year, right? Like, when I was working at Cockroach Labs, Azure Central US region went down, and their compute was just inaccessible. Kubernetes, their Azure AKS compute, blah blah blah, and that was a true like big outage for compute, and that was more well known. And that was just a year ago, right? Like we're talking about this concept of outages, and they're only going to happen once in your lifetime, right? That was just a year ago. So yeah, this one just seemed to be in a part of the stack that, like you're saying, might not have been publicly facing for companies.
Yeah. The frequency of these outages, because also GCP had an outage back in June that partially took down Cloudflare, because I guess Cloudflare, from what I remember reading about it, I think Cloudflare was using GCP's object storage for some configuration or something internally. So when it went down, it couldn't get access to that. So then Cloudflare went down as a result. But it's like, like in the past 5 months, we've had outages at every single major cloud provider, right? The big three. And pretty significant ones that had, wide-ranging effects. And it seems like these types of things have been happening more and more often as time has gone on, because it's just like, I feel like there's always some weird thing happening with some cloud provider or something. Which really, we should all be questioning, like, should we be relying on these cloud providers so heavily? And maybe more of us should go use the smaller cloud providers that exist out there, because there are other ones, right? There's DigitalOcean, there's Fly.io, there's many different CDN options. Those CDN options have compute now. Like Cloudflare has a form of compute, Fastly has a form of compute, Bunny CDN has a form of compute. Like, and some of them are like full on just like container runtimes. So you just like running containers at the edge. So like there are many other options for like having compute that are like much more interesting and like actually help you build applications a whole lot easier than something like AWS or the more the big time cloud providers.
I'm looking at GitHubStatus.com for GitHub, because GitHub has been a lot flaky lately in terms of their outages, and they're a little bit more micro outages, but they've just been happening so often that I'm like, what's going on there? And just in October, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 orange outages, which I guess are more severe, and too many yellow outages that I can't count them reasonably on this podcast right now live for you. And I'm just like, and that's October 2025. That's right. It. We didn't even go beyond that. That is 30 days of thing. And again, not criticizing the people that work there, so on and so forth. Like, I get it. This is hard work, blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying that, again, another example of centralizing our source code to a provider. So when its outages occur, we all feel it, and it has wide ranging impacts. And this is a problem, right? We are reaching the point now where we're kind of long past this local first, fault domain conversation. And I hope this recording that we're doing is showing users and viewers that, hey, maybe you can go back to your company and consider what you're all doing, and like just talk about this a little bit more, because this is going to happen again and again and again.
Yeah. Our lack of planning is truly absurd at this point as an industry. Like, I think we're so focused on like, oh no, we got to go fast, we got to ship things, we got to put things out the door, that it's like, how are we supposed to evolve our techniques and practices in a reasonable way if we're always so, I guess it's not just speed, it's both. Yeah, software engineering is hard, and it's only going to get harder over time, like as things become more distributed, as people expect more things, as things start being more integral to people's lives. Like, we're just going to get better at a lot of this stuff, and I think people have been trying to avoid it. We've been avoiding it for a really long time, and it goes pretty deep across the board, right? It's just like some of the problem with distributed systems is that we all write C-style languages that have a very strong assumption about how computers work, which is just not how computers work, and that makes I think a lot of it too for us starts with the popularity problem, right? I was thinking about this. I don't know why I was thinking about this the other day. I don't know why I was thinking about it, but it was like we kind of treat software in the way that, like, if you're talking about like, oh, who's the best student in school, and then being like, oh, it's obviously the most popular people in school that are the best students because the most people like them. And it's like, that's a really silly way to gauge who's the best student. Like, you do that via their GPA, and GPA is not great, but at least that gives you something like, about being in the place, a measure of what you're doing in the place for the reason you're there. And I think when it comes to a lot of the libraries we choose and a lot of the technologies we choose, we don't do the evaluation of like who's the best student. We do the evaluation of who's the most popular student.
How many stars you got?
Yeah. GitHub, I'm like, the days of that, how many GitHub stars you have? Oh, has a lot of GitHub stars, it must be good. Right? Or how many people are using? Oh, my cool friends are using, so I'm going to use it. And I think that winds up just being a big circle that has led us astray so many times. Like, so many of the technologies that are out there, you're like, these aren't really that good. Why are we all using them? And it's like, oh, yeah, because Bob told me it's a great technology to use.
I have no comment here because I probably will name technologies that you know what? I'm going to abstain from this one.
Well, you don't want to name all the popular girls in the technology field?
No, I'm good. I'm good. I like my life right now. I don't need any more DMs than I already get. Thanks. I don't even
no burn book for Matt.
Yeah, I'm good, man.
All right. Shall we do some unpopular opinions and some panic and recovers?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Ian, you haven't been here forever, so I feel like you should have at least a real good unpopular opinion, a really good panic or recover.
I don't actually know what the panic and recover is.
Oh,
he's been
You've been gone for so long.
Gone.
So, panic and recover is
this is my panic, and hopefully I recover.
Yeah.
So, panic and recover is like is an evolution of unpopular opinions, in which you say something that is maybe incendiary or just like shocking. That's the panic part. Then you do the recovery of explaining why it's actually not bad, so you can kind of continue forward. So it's like a shock and awe sort of thing.
Say something that
Shock
gets
and
you
recover.
canceled, and then say why you're just kidding.
So say something that might get canceled, and then be like, "But this is actually why I shouldn't get canceled over it."
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna need a second.
Okay.
Matt. Yeah, I'll go first. I'll do a panic recover. The panic, the whole hug ops movement thing, I don't like it. I think it's silly. I think it's not necessary. When these outages occur, hug ops, oh my God, silly. I think it's stupid, personally. Panic. Panic. The recover is, it's not that I think the idea is okay, right? I understand where it's coming from, the empathy, sympathy, blah, blah, blah. I just think there's no audience there. Like, who are you hug opsing? You know what I mean? Like, it feels more like a self-grandizing gesture than an actual, like, true empathy gesture, right? It's like, look, I am the one that's hug opsing people, rather than like actual, I care about the outage, and I hope the people behind the outage are okay. Just my read on it. Yeah.
What is HugOps?
Oh, good. Thanks for asking that question. That's actually a good question. So I actually don't know. Yeah, I think it's more of a virtual signal. Personally, when an outage occurs, people tend to do like hashtag HugOps or like HugOps to all of my affected SRE friends that are dealing with the outage. And it's like a way, I guess, of saying like I sympathize with all the hard work you're going through because you've probably been paged early on and you've been working hard throughout the whole day to deal with the outage. So I guess just a way of sympathizing with that sort of like, yeah.
Is it a nerd version of thoughts and prayers? Because it sounds like a nerd version of thoughts and prayers.
I guess. This is why I don't even care for it really. You know, like I'm asking an AI real quick to see exactly what they say. I should have used Flash instead of Pro because Pro is going to sit here and spin for a while. But yeah, I think it's exactly that. It's like a thoughts and prayers version of in the software side. Yeah, it's used to express empathy, appreciation, and solidarity for the engineers and operations staffs who are working to resolve a system outage or other high stress incident. It's a play on the DevOps thing, right? HugOps.
How about we just design our software to not cause our operators and maintainers stress?
Yeah, or like it's kind of implied that like what's the alternative? You wish negative things on them, you know what I mean? Like they're responsible for the outage and it's that person that should be chastised because of it. Like, no, of course you're gonna wish good things for them because it's an outage. Nobody wants to be in a stressful situation. I just, like I said, just this virtual signal around it, I don't care for personally.
Yeah.
Yep. And on that point, I already have the DM that I'm canceled. Show didn't even air yet, and I already got it.
Screw this guy. He's anti-hug.
He's anti-hug. He hates me. He hates people. He wants us to be paged. No, I don't. I held the pager probably longer than you.
Suffer.
Yeah. Actually, I was on call where I was one of 3. So one on call 1 week every 3 weeks. For almost an entire year. And that 3, like the 3, one of them was in Europe. So it was really a 1 of 2 rotation because when they're like out of hours, you know, like when their hours are different than ours, it's coming to me or the other one. So it's like, it was really a 1 of 2 rotation. And I was in there for over a year. So I don't want to hear your HugOps bull. Like, I don't want to hear it. Don't, you know, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm one of 4 for the last like 6 years.
Sorry, you're 1 of 4?
For 6 years now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that bad. Here's my unpopular opinion. I think you should be paged in the middle of the night if you fuck something up. Like, I don't like the idea of like other people dealing with those problems and like waking up for you or like having a team that does it. Like, I think the engineers should be paged in the middle of the night. Because like then you fix your like I'm extra focused on making things stable because I don't want to wake up at 4 a.m. Right? Like page engineers. Yeah. That's my unpopular opinion.
Yeah. I think the struggle is like engineers are not very good operations people. And I think we could help make them, but there's definitely people that are like very good at dealing with operational issues. But I do think that engineers should have to face more of the consequences for what they do. Like this is like the whole thing with like other engineering professions being licensed. It's like part of it is just like a really silly historical thing about, you know, basically a way for municipalities to gain money and governments to gain money by like making you have to get licensed. Another part of it's like, oh, you're offering services to the world, you're going to be held liable for those services that you put out. And we as software engineers don't have that. We aren't really liable for the software that we're writing. And there isn't a lot of consequence.
Those physical contractor sort of engineer jobs tend to carry insurance because of that. Because they are liable. Like, yeah, exactly.
Right. I mean, you'd probably, if you had actual like, let's say that companies did institute like you have a premium that you have to pay. And if you write software that is buggy, your premiums go up. So we're going to pay you less money if you have more bugs in your code. I think we'd wind up having engineers be much more thoughtful about what they're building and what they're designing. Because it's like, yeah, your paychecks can go down if you keep messing this up. because
some of
now
the
other
larger
people-
companies have some of that internally by way of like deployment time and like time on the infrastructure. Like your budget of time is higher when you submit higher quality code more frequently, and like your budget of time is lower and you get fewer build minutes, fewer, you know what I mean? Or you need more reviews. Like, so there's some of that in the larger companies, but yeah, I agree. Like it would be nice to have something.
you gotta tie it to something that's actually gonna like make people stop and think, which is like, and not be necessarily punishing for
right, because this could be totally misconstrued as like a pathological case, and like we definitely don't want to.
And like if people are building bad code, like having them have less build time is not going to fix that problem.
Right. Yeah, you almost need more build time in a way, right? Like
if
you're a bad chef, you need to cook more meals to get your skills up, not fewer meals. Yeah,
and have more mentoring on all of that. But yeah, it's like there needs to be more consequences for when people don't spend time, because we are really stuck as an industry in this spot where it's real hard to build good software.
Yeah,
because you are constantly you're having to balance a whole bunch of nonsense. You're having to balance like we need to ship this now. You're having to balance everybody wants to choose new shiny technologies. You're having to balance like explaining everything to people who are decision makers who don't know how anything works. Like there's so much you need to balance that when you're like, I just want to do good engineering, it becomes very, very difficult to do. And there's just so much snake oil being sold like everywhere. Like everybody's on Kubernetes, and Kubernetes is like such a boondoggle. It's such a swindle of a technology. Like people are like, it's so great. I'm like, this is not a great orchestration system. Like why are we all convinced that this is a good orchestration system? It's just the popular one. We should have better orchestration systems. Yeah, I think we need some form of pressure, because at the end of the day, I think a lot of it is that engineers do not push back on things because the threshold for pain is like they haven't hit it yet. You got to do more things to push them to be like, well, now I'm going to get paid less if this gets messed up. So no, I'm not going to do that thing. You have to raise the stakes a bit in order to actually make things work better. Which, yeah, also paging people in the middle of the night is another way of doing that. Being like, get up, like your software broke, you got to go fix it, or you got to go figure out what's wrong with it. So I think that's a good opinion.
I have one other thing.
Okay.
We were talking about code review just a second ago. You mentioned it, Matt. My unpopular thing is the AI code review, like pull request review things, are actually really good. Have you used any of those?
I've used some of them, but not the ones that are like in like GitHub proper. Like I like asked AI to review my pull. I haven't used like CodeRabbit or Copilot, but I've used like Claude Code and stuff to pull down changes and say review this. Like give it the diff and say talk to me about this. And I do find it useful. And
like I don't think it does not replace a human review at all. But for like that nitpick weird, like I had just one today where I had like reversed if thing like to exit early, and I missed one of the conditions, and it was like, this looks wrong, and I was like, oh, that is wrong. Like and a human probably wouldn't have caught that. Like
right.
Yeah, I agree. AI tooling it's useful. I mean,
I tried not to like it for a long time, and it's just good. It's good.
I've like come around to it where it's like, I don't know if I've ever really hated AI. I've just been extremely skeptical of it. Now I'm slightly less skeptical. It still makes up stuff way too often. Like I'll be reading some AI things. I'll be like, that's absolutely incorrect. But it is helpful by and large. Like I've been using it a lot in like my baking of like thinking through ideas. I'll just, type it into Google, because that's like the only AI stuff that I use right now is like Google summaries. And it's just really good at like extracting information from a bunch of articles that I don't want to read because they're filled with nonsense, and like giving me a good answer, or at least an answer I can start with. But it's also like, I've been baking for a very long time, so I also know when it's spewing nonsense at me, and I can be like, no, that's wrong. That's definitely wrong. So yeah, I think AI is it's a nuanced situation, I would say.
Yeah. We could talk more about it in break.
We can talk more about it in break.
We can do anything.
We can do anything. I have an unpopular opinion, though.
Go for it.
My unpopular opinion is that the Go ecosystem needs more build tools that are distinct from the standard Go toolchain. Like, I want...
Like Buck 2 sort of thing?
Well, yeah, like we have like Basil and Buck and
yeah.
Pants, or was Pants the old version of... I don't remember. Was Pants Twitter? Maybe Pants was Twitter. But like, you know, the big companies put out their own build tooling to do like big mono repo or like multi-language repo build systems. And that's really cool. I like that those exist. I just think we need to have another tool that's at the level of the Go tool that just operates without modules, without the same constructs, like just uses like the compiler and other things, and like has a different way of packaging things. Because I think we as an ecosystem right now are stuck in a place where modules works good for like 90% of use cases and people, but in the 10% where it's not good, it's like real rough. And I think we should find a way to remediate that. And I think doing that is like building a new tool chain, because like modules are not part of Go, right? They are part of how the Go tool chain works, but the Go tool chain is not Go. Go is a specification. So it's like there's nothing preventing us from being able to build something that it operates better. And I think we had a lot of missed opportunities because we built something that looks so much like what other tool chains look like. Like modules does look a lot like how, you know, packages work in Node or in Python, or how Ruby is also like a weird ecosystem, but like, you know, how Composer and packages work in PHP. But I think Go benefits from having very good static analysis tooling and just in general very good code analyzers that we could do much more interesting things. Like I was having a conversation with someone about this the other day, where it's just like, yeah, we could perhaps actually solve the diamond dependency problem in a much more novel way than how it's typically approached. And I think the big mistake we made is that we made another unit of code that is not a package, right? I think that we should go back to having packages just be this singular unit of code and not having a wider encompassing unit of code. Basically, we don't need to group packages together.
You have 3 units, the workspace.
Yeah.
I've still never used a workspace.
Do you want to go for 4? No, I'm just kidding.
We have packages, modules, workspaces. And I think, too, part of the problem with modules is that it really conflates the...
workshops.
Oh, God, workshops. It conflates the way that developers want to develop their code and library authors want to maintain their code, and the way that code is released, right? It's kind of... everything is mixed together, and I think those things should be separated out. So that's my unpopular opinion. Go needs a new and different tool chain. Well, build tool chain, build system.
I'm not going to build it, but feel free.
I mean, I've been thinking about it for a while. I might eventually build it. We'll see. But I think it's a good idea. I think we need something new.
And shiny that people can talk about on the golf course.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying not to let my Go annoyances prop up. But I did read the proposal of Go modules, generic methods. And they're basically like, we can't do this. And, you know, I didn't really like the discussion that was there. But packages, I don't know. I said this earlier in a different episode, I think. The last name of the package being the thing that matters kind of bothers me. So I'd be okay with some sort of build tooling shakeup thing in that regard. But
the last thing of... well, the package name and its import path are orthogonal.
Yeah, like the only thing that matters is the last portion of the package path. Not the import path of like a module, but the import path of a package, you know, in maybe the same... right.
Generally, module. Yes, that last part of the path will match the package name.
But it does not have to.
It does not have to, though.
Right.
That's just convention.
are some times where I do kind of want the same package name, and there are different concerns because they're grouped differently in like the package organization structure, but they share the same name. So now I have to like override the import name.
Right.
And I don't like that. I wish like the full path mattered a little bit more, but this is a problem in every language. So like
namespace to imports.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like one of the things that came up from the conversation I was having about this was like there was a critical mistake made in having import paths be file system paths, because like Unix file systems are not like, the directory structure is not a good like naming scheme for things, right? And you should have, basically you want like a name and a version, and there's no way to really do that well with a directory hierarchy thing. And Go does not mandate that an import path be a directory hierarchy. An import path is an opaque string, according to Go. So there's nothing that says, I mean, it'd be weird. You'd probably have to do some stuff to make it compatible with like the regular Go toolchain, but there's nothing that says like you have to have it be a directory structure of some sort. It could just be a name that's designed in some other way.
There used to be a tool that would go and rewrite all your import paths to IPFS addresses.
That's fascinating.
So that they never go away. Like, yeah, I don't know. Not that IPFS files never go away, but
right. Yeah, it'd be interesting to be able to take a fresh look at tooling and figure out a better approach, because especially when you're just like, I think more people want things like mono repos or like personal mono repos, but like, and I guess now modules are a bit better. Multiple modules in a single repository are better, but it's just weird that we've decided that you have to draw a boundary around your code somewhere that is not just the directory boundary or the package boundary. I think having to draw two circles is the tough part, because you're like, what's in this and what's not in this? And then you have things like the AWS SDK, where it's like, there's so many packages because there's so many services, and it's like, yeah, they're all
they're all
related,
separate modules now.
They're all separate modules now? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's just like,
all the services are separate modules now.
Now I have so many modules. So then it's like, yeah, it complicates design quite a bit.
I'm pretty sure that's true. I hope I'm not telling you the wrong thing.
This package, you migrate to V2.
Yeah,
each service has its own Go mod file.
Love how we got on this topic from that Amazon outage thing.
Full circle back to AWS SDK.
Full circle. Okay, so this is much better now that you have different.
Yeah, I don't know. The old one's deprecated now too.
It's just like, I don't know. Modules are. I think that if you want to use them and have them, that's fine. But I think we should have alternatives. I think we should have a more robust ecosystem with more interesting things going on.
I didn't love them at first, and now I just have zero issues with them.
I'm gonna go to break. I don't even want to dive into this because I have thoughts, but
all right, yeah, okay, yeah. Let's go to break. First,
I had a good day, you know.
I gotta do an outro.
Do an ASMR outro. Sorry, I will never do that again. I just had to do it twice.
No, it's fine. It's our viewers, listeners that are going to be mad. It's okay. It's not like we're here for
cut that out.
I refuse. So, viewer/listener, how did you like that conversation? Do you feel like you have a better understanding of the outages that occurred in the most recent weeks? Do you have your own thoughts? Let us know on social media or in the comments. As always, we love interacting with you all. This episode of Fall Through was hosted by Kris Brando with co-hosts Matthew Sanabria and Ian Wester-Lopshire. Fall Through is produced by Kris Brando and Angelica Hill, and our beats are by Breakmaster Cylinder.
An ASMR intro.
I can give you a potato chip chomp right into the mic.
Oh, God.
Oh, I liked that one.
We are a professional and serious podcast. That is what we are. Anyway.
Speak for yourself, but okay. Can we do an ASMR outro?
No.
You know what I mean? Like I know things, I think.
And I was like, that's a good slogan.
Picturing vault being like,
It's the sun.
Somebody that I used to go.
And done.
Ice.